going on, guys? My name is Zed and welcome to this video. This is last week I watched number 16 and starting off the week I watched, the hell did I watch? So apparently the movie is called Bleed For Me, which stars Miles Teller, and it's a boxing movie. Now, I love boxing movies, and when the trailer came out a couple of years ago, I remember watching it and thinking, oh, that looks good. I'm going to watch that. And then I never did. So I was just kind of scrolling through Netflix yesterday morning, and that's what I came across, and that's what I watched. It's about a boxer who is kind of at the height of his career, but it's starting to stumble. And after a horrific accident that leaves his neck very, very injured, he kind of thinks, and everyone around him thinks, this is the end of his career. And obviously they made a movie that was supposed to be like an underdog, you know, getting to the peak of glory again. So it doesn't stop there, and it's basically Miles Teller's character's road to recovery and eventually getting back into the ring. I did enjoy it. Miles Teller is a great actor, and I honestly don't watch him in enough movies. I do feel like I wanted to get to know the actual box. I can't remember the boxer's name right now, but I want to know Miles Teller's characters a bit more. I feel like there was a little bit more about the actual man that could have been integrated into the story. But overall, it was pretty enjoyable. What's his name? Aaron Eckhart's also in it. So he's always a fucking fantastic actor. So overall, Bleed For This, a good time. You have an hour and 40 minutes, like a good boxing movie like myself. Check it out on Netflix. And then next up, I decided to check out a movie that I have heard nothing but great things about, and it's a movie that's kind of a staple, and that is Three Men and a Baby. And apparently, I had no idea what this movie was about because heroin, excuse me? So for like the first 25 to 30 minutes, I was kind of confused on why this movie was such a classic, such a beloved movie. And as the three men start warming up to marry, you start warming up to the men and their relationships and such like that, and you actually become very, very invested. So I don't know what to say that it hasn't been said. It's very enjoyable. I wouldn't call it funny, but it's heartwarming. It's very, very heartwarming. And the last 20 minutes of this movie are quite, they tug at your heartstrings and they make you feel like, oh my God, like, I would be devastated. I'd be absolutely devastated if, something I cared for so much was taken away from me. What Zed didn't know is that hours later, he would be notified that his beloved cat had ran away. True story. And I had no power over it. But what I wasn't expecting was a whole side story about heroin. Like, you know what? Cocaine? I get it. Pot? I get it. Heroin? But one thing of note, this movie came out in 1987. And so did another classic TV sitcom, Full House. And I don't know about you, but there are very similar scenes and concepts between that movie and that TV show. And there's some scenes that are honestly almost carbon copies of each other. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but I would say Full House definitely had to be pretty heavily inspired by Three Men and a Baby, or the other way around. I don't know. But with that being said, it is enjoyable. I would recommend it. 3 out of 5 stars. Let's move on to Three Men and a Little Lady, which is the sequel that apparently exists. Three Men and a Little Lady was honestly really good. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I felt like it was a good natural progression of the original story. It didn't feel forced, it didn't feel weird, and I have this misconception that 90s sequels to 80s movies are just never as good. But this one is. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed having the cast all back together. I felt like the way that the story progressed forward, like I said, was really well done. Overall, it was again just as heartwarming. Less heroin in this one, but still very, very enjoyable. So 3 men and a little lady, 3 out of 5 stars. And then next up, I watched Observe and Report, which is a movie I watched a couple of years ago for the first time, and I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. But one thing I cannot get over is how similar this movie is to another 2009 Mall Cop movie. Paul Blart Mall Cop. It's the exact same movie. And though I enjoy both of these Mall Cop movies, I have to say there's something kind of special about this one. You know, I watched a Seth Rogen interview about the similarities between these two movies and how he kind of feels that they were slighted by the popularity of this movie, even though they're literally the exact same. And I believe he even said this one went into production first. Anyway, this movie is full of great one-liners, great characters, including the 2 twins right here. Seth Rogen's character is awesome. So is Michael Pena's character. You have, what's his name from Goodfellas? Ray Liotta. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. It's a good look into the psyche of, I guess, a crazy man with good intentions. But yeah, overall, hour and 26 minutes. It's an easy watch. It's pretty enjoyable. And I'm glad that he didn't end up with Anna Faris's character, because she was a bad person. So I just got done watching a Netflix original movie called Mute. And it stars Alexander Skarsgård and Paul Rudd and other people. And I remember this is another case of one of those movies where I saw the poster and the trailer, I was intrigued. But after it came out, I just heard an outpour of bad reviews. And that was disappointing. And at, a little over 2 hours, I guess I just wasn't ready to invest that amount of time into a movie that I felt like I would probably dislike. And unfortunately, it's kind of what happened. Now, I do want to say that there are a lot of good ideas in this movie, but it was muddled. It was kind of poorly executed, and you have such a great star and such a really interesting character. You gotta think about it this way. In this movie, Alexander Skarsgård plays a guy who has damaged vocal cords. So he can't talk, he can't speak. He is also Amish. An Amish man living in the future of Germany. So a futuristic Germany with an Amish man who can't talk. It's a cool concept, but there's just so much in this movie that they're like setting up. There comes a time where you kind of need some payoff and a little less setup. And that's just kind of what this movie was. It was setup after setup after setup, and then there was no real payoff, unfortunately. Now, the ending is rough. Not rough as it's a bad ending, it's rough as in it's emotionally difficult to watch. It's sad. It tugs at your heartstrings. It breaks your heart. And then, there's obviously a whole plot line with Paul Rudd's character who ends up, being good friends with a fucking pedophile, which is another really rough thing to watch, because obviously the audience is aware of his friend's demons before he is. And anything with pedophilia or anything that has to do with hurting a child in any way is inherently difficult to watch. And this movie has, a large subplot about that. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess watch at your own risk. Maybe you will like this movie. This director directed a movie called Moon, which is spoiler alert, connected to this movie with one little small cameo part. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of this director, then give it a shot. But honestly, I think you'd end up wasting some of your time. But that is Mute. I was really looking forward to this one. Honestly, I thought that maybe I would have, a different opinion, a different view. But Mute, 2 out of 5 stars. Alright, and then next up I watched Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. And I have to say, this is by far my favorite stoner comedy I have ever seen, because it feels so genuine. And that's because they were probably both genuinely high throughout the filming of this movie. Tommy Chong reminds me so much of my late grandfather. It's not even funny. Like, watching this movie, I felt like I was watching my grandpa again, which is pretty cool. Very funny. I honestly, there are so many other stoner comedies I hear a lot more about, but this one is perfect. It's seriously perfect. Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, 4 out of 5 stars. And next up, babies, we have Jurassic Park, my all-time favorite movie, which just celebrated its 27th birthday yesterday. And of course, I watched it, and of course, I absolutely love this movie. You already know, 10 out of 5 stars. It is incredible. There is not a single thing I do not love about this movie. Not a single thing. I love everything. It's the perfect comedy, drama, horror, thriller, action movie. It has everything you would ever want in one movie, including dinosaurs. Everybody is absolutely incredible. Every single actor, every single character, every single scene in this movie is iconic. I love it. I'm sorry I talk about this movie too much. I'm not sorry. It's my fucking channel. I can talk about it if I want. Jurassic Park, the greatest movie of all time. The one singular perfect movie in cinematic history. And then next up, I watched Turner and Hooch, which stars my boy Tom Hanks, my favorite actor. This movie's actually getting a remake the next year or two, starring Josh Peck, which should be pretty cool. But Turner and Hooch is about an investigator who's a bit of a neat freak, and after a murder in his town, he has to take in this very dirty, grungy, slobbery dog who was the murder victim's pet. And besides, if you know me, you know I have a gag reflex for a couple of things, and one of those things is drool and spit. I have a really tough time dealing with that stuff. So with Hooch in this movie, he's always drooling and slobbering. Not my cup of tea. I just thought about going into a cup of tea. My eyes are watering. But overall, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed the chemistry between Tom Hanks and the dog that played Hooch. It's just a fun, entertaining movie when you're eating dinner. For reasons I just explained, don't watch this movie while eating dinner. That's stupid. That's a big stupid. It lasts an hour and a half, and you have a couple laughs, and you have a good time. So Turner and Hooch, 3 out of 5 stars. Then next up, I watched the worst and best movies I've seen in 2020 thus far, and that is ARTEMIS, FOWL and Da 5 Bloods. But those two are already on the channel as videos of their own. So if you want to check those out, link in the description, or you can just go onto the channel and they should be 2 of the most recent videos. And then next up, I watched The Platform on Netflix, which is a Spanish movie. Now, Netflix does offer a dubbed version of The Platform, but if you're anything like me, then you are really distracted when the words don't match the mouth flaps. So I watched the subbed version, the subtitled version, and this movie is great. It's a non-subtle look at capitalism through this depiction of a towering prison where each level has 2 prisoners, and they're all in this giant stack. And every single day, there is a table that lowers through each level and gives the inmate, let's just say, a minute to eat. Now, we don't know how many levels of this prison there actually are, so everyone who's at the top gets to, basically eat as much as they want, and by each layer and by the bottom, there's no food left. So it's a look at capitalism through starvation and greed, and gluttony as a whole. And it's great. It's really great. And let me tell you, do not watch this movie on a full stomach, and I highly not recommend watching it before or after you eat. Because I had to pause in the middle of the movie to eat, and I was not hungry. I felt sick trying to eat. But yeah, I recommend this movie. It's so dark and disturbing and sickening, and it's great. So the platform, 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And until next time, guys, I'll be seeing you later. Peace.